Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. I was honestly not that keen to jump back into first-person shooters, but remembering how much fun I had with Far Cry 3 and hearing how highly recommended Blood Dragon was, I had to check it out. Being a much shorter experience as well was a bonus, since I'm kinda struggling to get time in any other game than Space Marine 2 at the moment. So this is my retrospective review of Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. Though I heard a lot of good things about this game, I was actually still coming in pretty blind. I had seen the cover art in passing, but didn't realise how much of a difference this game would be compared to the original Far Cry 3 base game. Nevertheless, this was definitely an interesting experience.
I got the touch. I got the power, yeah! Doc, I got the kill star. It's Sloane's bedtime. And I plan to tuck him in, under 6 feet of dirt.
Now, starting off with gameplay. Being a standalone DLC, it is still very much Far Cry 3 with a fresh coat of neon paint and synthwave soundtrack to boot, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it works surprisingly well. There really wasn't anything wrong with Far Cry 3, so realistically, this is just an excellent alternate take on the now quite famous formula. You can still go on hunts, complete side quests,
You saved me! Huzzah!
liberate camps, or continue with the main story, much like in the base game.
Nope, it's not. Doc, it's a no-go on the explosives.
There is a change to the creatures you can hunt or encounter though. The most obvious one is the Blood Dragons. And the creature that is the namesake of this expansion is an absolutely insane addition. Like in Far Cry 3, as you start out, you might feel a bit hesitant and apprehensive about taking on the creatures that you hunt, because your gear isn't that good. As you get more familiar with the game and gain better weapons, you can really just roll through them. In Blood Dragon, with the introduction of these huge lizards, you will definitely second guess your approach. The sheer size alone is enough to give you a fright, but what's terrifying is that they can also shoot literal laser beams at you if you get in their way. This adds a whole new dimension to the gameplay that I really enjoyed. By that same token though, they're not overly tanky or bullet spongy, so it all works. Oh, and they're not the only new enemy you encounter in the game.
What are those things?
We're not sure. Perhaps a living fossil from the early Cretaceous period. We call them blood dragons. BDs for short.
As you continue through the story, there will be some pretty interesting moments. The introduction of different enemy types and environments mixed with the mechanics of the original game really works well to keep things fresh and the player wanting more. And though you can climb really tall structures, there aren't any of those towers that you can capture to show more of the map. They've been completely removed, which didn't really bother me. There are also still collectibles throughout that have obviously been changed to suit the theme of the game here. VHS tapes and CRT TV sets abound the world, and as an older gamer, feels like it just fits in so well, especially when the whole narrative is based on those classic 90s style action sci-fi movies. Also, I think it is worth mentioning that in classic Ubisoft fashion, even though this game is super old, it hasn't really been patched properly. And each time you press escape to the pause menu, you'll constantly be trying to connect to now defunct servers. There is a workaround, but it's just frustrating to have to do this. Why do I have to connect to servers for a single player game anyway? On the plus side, you can flip people off in the game.
Spider. Should have been him strapping this thing on.
If you can't do it with him, Rex, do it for him.
You're right. I need to even the score.
For Spider?
No. For humanity.
The graphics themselves are honestly probably nothing too spectacular. It is, after all, based on Far Cry 3. I guess I'd say it still does an excellent job and is still very playable today though. The difference though, I think, is that the bright neon color style may be a bit more jarring because of how intense they can feel, but otherwise does a great job to highlight the quality of graphics present. I should preface though that I did feel some motion sickness as I played, but I think that may have been more to do with the driving mechanics and the mouse controls over anything else. Something I think was also present in the original Far Cry 3 base game. If you get motion sickness, my advice would be to not use the mouse whilst driving.
Failsafe countermeasures active. Beginning pre-launch diagnostics. Initiating decapitation strike protocols.
The art style during the cutscenes is probably one of my favourite parts of this game. Though the actual story and theme and vibe is based on the 90s and 2000s film style, the pixel style animated story cutscenes brings back that early 90s style video game aesthetic. And combining it with the music is actually just the perfect way of creating that nostalgic feel without directly showing an older game. The bold use of colours is also a real highlight for me personally. They both not only serve to mark things of interest to the player from a gameplay perspective, but do such a good job of showcasing the world from a stylistic viewpoint. Like, this bright neon and cyberpunk aesthetic feels like it's created a whole new genre of its own, whilst at the same time taking influence from movies like Blade Runner or Aliens or Terminator or Robocop. It's honestly just really cool, especially as an older gamer. Now, onto the music. This is probably one of the most unique soundtracks I've heard in a while. Like, it doesn't demand the power or presence of something huge and orchestral, nor does it tug at the heartstrings trying to evoke all manner of emotions. What it does do though, is unashamedly show off the developers' commitment to their vision with this electro synthwave soundtrack that would fit right into a big dystopian cyberpunk inspired future. And I mean, the music is pretty amazing, it just fits really well with the whole game. It's also refreshing to hear something that's really unique and different, and funnily enough is surprisingly uncommon in video games in general. The best part though is that the soundtrack was actually created by an electro synthwave duo from none other than Australia. One of the artists actually goes by the pseudonym of Michael Bean, the same Michael Bean that plays the main character in the game. It's just a perfect fit. And speaking of Michael Bean, who voices Rex Power Colt, he's really done an excellent job here. I mean, to be fair, the voice work in the original Far Cry 3 was also expertly done, and here it's really no different. Bean just embodies the tough, almost indifferent yet cool protagonist so well, and represents the epitome of what old school 90s style action heroes were of that era.
Rex, are you doing okay after that EMP surge?
Good as new, Doc. There's no challenge I can't beat.
His supporting cast also absolutely commit to their respective roles, with the bombshell of Elizabeth Darling and Spider being some standouts worth mentioning.
If this don't work, you tell them. You tell them I died for my country.
A lot of the dialogue is also absurdly campy and entertaining, and yet so well voiced at the same time.
I swore an oath to a special lady.
Your wife?
No, Lady Liberty. She taught me that winners don't use drugs.
I couldn't help but feel impressed whilst each pixelated cutscene played out, all while sporting a massive grin. To be fair, I think a lot of how well the lines are delivered are owed to the writing, because it just shows the level of creativity from the team. It also shows how well they've been able to really capture the essence of that era of film and story and vibe. I think an older gamer that grew up during that time will definitely appreciate this game.
We were using the rockets to test biochemical payloads of the dragon's blood.
Rockets? As in more red spears? How many?
I don't know. A lot. I don't think Sloan is interested in tests anymore. And I don't even want to get into what it does to normal people.
Now, the story of Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. This is probably my favourite part of this game.
Doc, you play video games?
Like, the stupidly fun and cliched themes, the over-the-top lines, it all ties together so well, even through the ridiculousness of it. I think the developers have definitely just decided to have fun with this one, and haven't taken themselves too seriously, and it shows.
Frankly, anyone who thinks games are bad for you is a f***ing idiot.
Hey, whoa, Doc.
The creativity is abundant, and the nostalgic influence from the older movies is obvious and really helps the game shine. To me, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon is like one of those fun B-grade movies that isn't going to win any Oscars. It's a bit goofy, really over the top, but it's a super fun popcorn flick. It's like that guilty pleasure that doesn't take itself too seriously and is just a fun time. Ubisoft, being the size that it is, really gives it the ability to branch out and experiment and create smaller, less mainstream experiences, but they don't often do, which this game feels like. Like, it obviously still has the standard hallmarks of an Ubisoft title, but you can just tell that this story and vibe was probably not something the execs would be banking on.
Excellent.
It's just a shame that AAA devs are so risk averse today. The game itself isn't very long, so some might be disappointed by it, but it was the perfect fit for me. I mean, you could probably add a couple more hours to it and have it feel like a fully fleshed out mainline experience, but I really wasn't bothered. This game feels a lot more like something you could probably knock over in one session if you really wanted to. Oh, and the ending is actually pretty interesting considering this is a standalone spin-off.
Ignition controls offline. Countdown aborted. Countdown aborted. Countdown aborted.
207-3 on approach.
Now, the verdict. Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, to me, is a game that allowed the devs to have a bit of fun, go as over the top and as silly as they wanted to, and just make something that's a great time with no filler, and they've succeeded. Ubisoft is an old name in the gaming industry today, and was originally built on great video game experiences. It's not necessarily always the case now though, but with Blood Dragon, I think they've really knocked it out of the park. From the unique soundtrack to the outstanding visuals, from the over-the-top story to the very tongue-in-cheek humour, it's all perfectly done. Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon is an amazing experience and absolutely still worth playing today.
Rex, don't do it for me. Do it for world peace.
If you've managed to sit through this whole video, thank you so much for watching. I'm still looking to upload a brand new video once a fortnight, but be sure to let me know what else you'd like to see in the comments. Thanks again for watching. Hopefully, I'll catch you in the next one.